books were supplied. So this not only violated their right to education in terms of Section 29 of the Constitution, it also violated their right to equality. With regard to remedial action, the report indicates that appropriate remedial action to be taken as envisaged in Section 182(1)(c) of the Constitution is the following. A, the Minister of Basic Education should hold the Director General, Mr. Bobby Subrayan, accountable for his actions and omissions that resulted in the failure to prevent, contain, and solve the national school workbooks crisis. B, the Director General of the National Department of Basic Education is to ensure a functional coordinating structure with the head of Department of the Eastern Cape, keeping in mind the National Department of Basic Education's structure and plan, with dedicated officials at all levels, as the current processes seem to be incomplete and inadequate. The officials should have clearly defined responsibilities to ensure that district officers and school accounting officers are consulted with regard to the ordering and delivery of workbooks. C, both the Director General of the National Department of Basic Education and the head of department of the Provincial Department of Education should refrain from using the statistics of learners enrolled in the previous academic year for the planning and delivery of the following year's school workbook requirements. Indeed, the head of department of the Provincial Department of Education should consult accounting officers concerning the planning and delivery of school workbooks for the following academic year's roles. E, deliveries should occur during official school hours, and school accounting officers must be consulted prior to the delivery. F, the head of department of the Provincial Department of Education should ensure that the schools have adequate storage space for the safekeeping of school workbooks. G, the Provincial Department of Education should ensure that schools have dedicated officials to take charge of delivered stock and proper document management of school workbooks. We are aware that the problem of school books in a broader sense has been mostly solved. However, I considered that this report is still relevant, despite the interaction we've had with the Department of Education to sort out aspects that needed to be sorted whilst we were investigating. There are steps that still need to be taken, and they are the steps that I've just announced. The second report is called Unsolicited Donation. This report deals with allegations relating to the hosting of the ICT Indaba in 2012. The allegations were that the procurement process for the hosting of the Indaba was irregular. It was also alleged that Indaba funds were abused. And then thirdly, it was alleged that a person related to the then Minister of Communications was at the center of the mismanagement of those funds. My finding in that particular case are the following. The company that hosted the Indaba or coordinated the hosting of the Indaba, named Carol Bauer Productions, was not appointed by the Department of Communications to coordinate the Indaba. The Indaba was Carol Bauer Productions project that could have been executed by them without the Department of Communications consent. We acknowledge that CBP needed the Department of Communications blessing for the communications industry support to be solicited. My finding in relation to the procurement, therefore, is that there was no unlawfulness or impropriety on the part of both the Department of Communications and Carol Bauer Productions. The second allegation being the solicitation of sponsorship for the ICT Indaba. My finding is that the Department of Communications did solicit sponsorship for the ICT Indaba, but this was not unlawful or improper. I also find that the Honorable Pule, being the minister at the time, was not the first to issue sponsorship letters of support on behalf of Carol Bauer Productions and the ICT Indaba. Previous sponsorship letters had been issued by the then Deputy Minister of Communications, the Honorable Obert Bapela. A related allegation regarding the solicitation of sponsorship support for the ICT Indaba was that Honorable Pule the Honorable Pule pressured Telkom and other mobile phone companies and affected mobile phone companies to sponsor the event. This allegation is not substantiated by evidence. The companies were interviewed and they claimed that they had not been subjected to any pressure. What was conceded by the Department of Communications was that after sponsorship pledges had been received, and when it became clear that the money was not forthcoming, the companies were encouraged to deliver on their pledges. The fourth issue I dealt with was the donation, which speaks to the title of the report. My finding is that Honorable Pule did commit her department to donate. I put donation in quotation marks. 10 million as financial assistance to the ICT Indaba through her letter dated 15 December 2011, addressed to Ms. Carol Bauer. However, on the basis of evidence before me, the finding is that such financial assistance was unsolicited. The process was also not executed in accordance with Treasury Regulation 21, regulating the granting of gifts, donations, and sponsorships by the state. Her conduct and that of her department was accordingly unlawful, improper, and constitutes maladministration. Regarding Carol Bauer Productions and the 10 million donation, my finding is that Carol Bauer Productions innocently accepted the donation and integrated the money into the ICT Indaba coordination operations. It would accordingly be unjust to require that the money be refunded. It is also clear that the state derived some value from the event, and related activities, although a lot of that value was later undermined by the negative publicity. The next issue I had to deal with was the allegation that Honorable Pule had a relationship with a certain Mr. Mgqibisa, which influenced his behavior in the Indaba. And it was also alleged that this Mr. Mgqibisa was represented to the Department of Communications as Honorable Pule's companion, and that he accordingly improperly benefited as such from departmental finances. My finding on this issue is that despite numerous denials at various fora, Honorable Pule did represent to her department that Mr. Mgqibisa was her official companion. The key evidence being a form completed upon her appointment as the Deputy Minister of Communications. I further find that by her own admission to me during her interview on 28 June 2013, Honorable Pule and Mr. Mgqibisa had a romantic relationship. She added during that interview that he was, however, not her spouse, as he was married to someone else under civil law and was therefore not entitled to spousal benefits. During the meeting, Honorable Pule offered to ensure that all departmental expenditure on Mr. Mgqibisa's trips would be reimbursed before I concluded my investigation. In this regard, Honorable Pule made good on her promise, as Mr. Mgqibisa paid back on 18 July 2013 an amount of 89,326 rand 35 cents that was inappropriately spent on him by the Department of Communications in September 2009 on a trip to Mexico, where he accompanied Honorable Pule on her official visit to that country. However, my finding is that Honorable Pule was not entirely honest to me, as she stated that the relationship ended before she became the Minister of Communications, while evidence relating to trips undertaken as Minister of Communications confirm a relationship. I can also not reasonably accept her submission that she did not know that her office unilaterally reflected and funded Mr. Mgqibisa as her spouse during her trips as Deputy Minister and later as Minister. Honorable Pule's conduct in this regard was unlawful. I also considered it improper that she tried to pass the buck onto her staff. I consider this on its own grossly improper and unethical. In the main report, I also deal with Honorable Pule's treatment of Parliament. Let me just now quickly go to the allegation that MTN's sponsorship of 15 million was irregularly diverted by Mr. Mgqibisa to another company called ABR instead of the main account for the Indaba, which was handled by Carol Bauer Productions. And that he then transferred, without authority, 6 million of this money into his own company. Firstly, I must just indicate that what MTN does with its money is none of my business as the public protector, because it's a private company and the money never went into a government fund. And the question that was raised, and I was questioned by Mr. Mgqibisa and the Department of Communications on, is why are we concerned about MTN's money? My concern, or the team's concern about this money, is that there is a relationship between the unsolicited donation of 10 million by the Department of Communications and the excess money from the 15 million that was donated by MTN and then was then used as orphaned money, which was the concept that the team used. My finding on the MTN sponsorship of 15 million is that 15 million was irregularly diverted by Mr. Mgqibisa into ABR banking account instead of the CBP account specifically designated for the ICT Indaba funds, and that he subsequently improperly transferred 6 million of this money into his Kemano company. I further find that the appropriation of 6 million or a substantial part thereof constitutes improper enrichment on the part of Mr. Mgqibisa's company, and that siphoning this money was made possible through the surplus funds caused by the unsolicited and unlawful donation of 10 million from Honorable Pule. Regarding the allegation that Honorable Pule improperly benefited from a pair of Christian Louboutin shoes worth 10,000 rand from Mr. Mgqibisa, owner of Kemano, which was subcontracted for and benefited from the ICT Indaba. My finding is that although Honorable Pule was wearing new red-soled Christian Louboutin shoes at the event, no concrete evidence linked the shoes to Mr. Mgqibisa or Kemano. I accordingly find no justifiable reason to reject her explanation that she bought the shoes for herself and owns several shoes from this exclusive brand. On the allegation that Honorable Pule's alleged romantic relationship with Mr. Mgqibisa created a potential conflict of interest which benefited him improperly from the financial sponsorships contributed by private companies towards the hosting of the ICT Indaba, my finding is that this allegation is substantiated. It was Honorable Pule's department that brought Mr. Mgqibisa and his company to the ICT Indaba fold without Carol Bauer Productions' request. Evidence indicates that Carol Bauer had already indicated to the Department of Communications that she already had an execution partner by the name of Hunter Live, an agency that was eventually elbowed out as Kemano and its subcontractors took over the ICT Indaba coordination processes. On the allegation that Honorable Pule caused her department to benefit Mr. Mgqibisa improperly in the ICT Indaba, I also find that this allegation is substantiated. Honorable Pule acted in breach of paragraph 2.3, subsection G of the Executive Ethics Code, in that her unlawful extension of spousal benefits to Mr. Mgqibisa amounted to making improper use of allowances available to her. I have found that Honorable Pule's conduct was inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution and the Executive Ethics Code. Specifically in the Constitution, we're talking about Section 96 and we're talking about the code in terms of section 3 of the code and 4. The appropriate remedial action as envisaged in section 182(1)(c) of the Constitution is the following. A. Honorable Pule. Honorable Pule is being asked to do the following. 1. To make good on her promise made on 28 June to quantify all amounts spent by the Department of Communications on Mr. Mgqibisa's overseas trip to Mexico and other trips, and ensure that every cent is paid back. Honorable Pule, the amount has already been refunded, as we have noted. However, the amount that was refunded was the one we had a receipt and we gave it to Honorable Pule, so it was quantified. So the process of quantifying what we hadn't quantified has not happened yet. So we are requesting that that process should be concluded as agreed with her on 28 June 2013. I'm also asking Honorable Pule to issue an apology to Ms. Carol Bauer for subjecting her to a hidden agenda, placing her in an untenable situation. The Sunday Times, for the persistent insult and denial of the truth that she eventually admitted to me on 28 June 2013. Affected staff members of the Department of Communications for placing them in an unethical situation involving persistent lies and deceit. And finally, Honorable Pule is being asked to apologize to Parliament for persistently misleading this august constitutional pillar and never admitting the truth right until the end. Just to clarify that, to us, Honorable Pule admitted the truth at the end of our interview on 28 June. To Parliament, our understanding is that she never admitted the full circumstances of what happened. I'm also asking Honorable Pule to consider doing what the Honorable Premier Ndaweni Mahlangu did, faced with circumstances that are far less than what Honorable Pule is being accused of doing. I'm further asking the President to take note of the findings and expedite the finalization of the review of the Executive Members Ethics Act and the Executive Ethics Code. The idea being that there are various gaps currently in both the Act and the Code, and that these should be eliminated as we have previously requested. I'm requesting the Speaker of the National Assembly to take note of the findings and remedial action directed to the President and Honorable Pule, and to ensure that Parliament takes this into account in its ordinary oversight work. I'm also asking the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly to monitor that Honorable Pule makes good on her promise to repay state funds irregularly spent on Mr. Mgqibisa. Obviously, we're taking account that 89,000 has already been paid. To the Minister of Communications, I'm requesting that he ensures that funds owed by Mr. Mgqibisa are urgently calculated and reclaimed from him. I'm also asking the Minister of Communications to consider commissioning an audit with a view to verify all the trips abroad undertaken by Mr. Mgqibisa at state expense while accompanying Honorable Pule, and recover from him all what the department would have improperly paid for him. I'm also requesting the expeditious execution of the disciplinary processes in respect of all employees that acted unlawfully in violation of the Public Service Code of Ethics in relation to the ICT Indaba. The conduct of these employees during this investigation should also be taken into account in that disciplinary process. I'm asking the Minister for Public Service and Administration to consider subjecting all members of the Cabinet and Provincial Executive to an ethics seminar, and to ensure that all new ministers attend an ethics seminar within 2 months of assuming office. We found that in the United States this is done. This is not assuming that ministers are unethical. It's just to familiarize everyone with the code, because everyone is subjected to a lot of information. Often the existence of the code becomes an issue when there is already a problem. So it's just supposed to be a preemptive approach. I'm also asking the Minister for Public Service and Administration to ensure that the Executive Ethics Code is turned into a pocket booklet to be provided to all members of the Executive on assumption of office, and also to be captured in the form of posters to be placed in all executive offices. That again is just to assist them to know what the code says well in advance. Lastly, I'm asking the law enforcement agencies already seized with the matter to proceed expeditiously on matters already referred to them by Parliament. From our side, we're not referring anything to any agency, given the fact that Parliament has already done so. I now quickly turn my attention to the last report titled Docked Vessels. As indicated earlier, the report communicates my findings and appropriate remedial action following an investigation into a complaint lodged on 19 February 2012 by the Democratic Alliance Member of Parliament by the name of Honorable Mr. P. van Dalen. Mr. van Dalen requested my office to investigate allegations relating to the improper award of an 800 million rand tender for the fisheries patrol services to a company called Segunjalo Marine Service Consortium. He further requested my office to investigate the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries alleged subsequent failure to re-advertise the tender, which meant that it was unable to fulfill its mandate to conduct scientific surveys, anti-poaching patrols, and inspections of fishing trawlers for illegal activities. He further alleged that the failure seriously jeopardizes the research and protection of the country's fishing resources and has far-reaching economic consequences. The complainant also requested a determination regarding the propriety of scoring, allocating one of the bidders the score of 1, which means very bad, on all the criteria, and the one with the least experience being scored the highest score of 5, which means excellent. This he attributed to a member of the bid evaluation committee, a certain Mr. Joseph Sabola. My office also received a substantially similar complaint from Mr. Paul McClons, the managing director of Smith Amandla Marine, Pty Ltd. Smith Amandla Marine was a company that had been having this contract with the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries until this tender was advertised. And at the time the investigation started, Smith Amandla Smith Amandla's contract had expired and the services were provided.
You deserve to know more.
eNCA.com.